How do you, every time Pujun comes off on back on camera, he's got a new piece of attire ready. He had a hat on a minute ago, and now he's got a jacket on.
Yeah, yeah. Bruce. Bruce.
Welcome back, everyone, to a very special episode of Bizora Brews. We are in the middle of summer right now, so it means conference season for tax professionals. And before we go off into the second half of the tax conferences, we just wanted to do a very special episode with some of the leading industry, people who are building the tools for next generation of accountants. We have the CEO of Pao, the CEO of Abacor, and the CEO of Kintsugi. And then we are going to talk about their journeys, why they took this step to build for the profession, and to begin off there. Pujun, will begin off with you. Thank you so much for being here. You started off with being in Georgia Tech and then transferring over to Stanford, and then eventually you work at Meta, and you finally decided like, hey, I am fine not making money anymore, and you decided to jump in and build a sales tax software. So what was that journey like? Why build in sales tax? And you had a very interesting journey before you even built it. You worked at CPA firms as well.
Yeah. So let me give you a little bit of a background about myself. So, hey, everyone. Thanks for joining and tuning in today. I'm the founder and CEO of Kintsugi. And really, to understand my journey, you need to understand that sales tax compliance kind of runs in my family. Both my father and my grandfather worked in the space as CPAs. And my father was actually one of the earliest employees of one of our biggest competitors, Avalara, who's the 800-pound gorilla in the space. And so growing up, what it meant was I personally saw really what worked and what did not work when it comes to the tools that were available for not only just direct businesses, but also auditors and experts who maintain a portfolio of companies. And death and taxes, you can't avoid them. When this whole South Dakota versus Wayfair was happening in 2018, the thesis was that if South Dakota won, this problem would become everyone's problem. And what I came in with a different perspective that unlike a CPA firm or somebody who's an expert, I also had this data background and machine learning background. And what I decided to build was, hey, instead of building another sales tax automation company with a layer of software, I wanted to build a data platform that connected all the systems of record for both the revenue and HR together, and essentially tell you how much sales tax do you owe and where do you owe without a credit card on file. So when that happened, that's how we came up with the name Kintsugi, because that means that means the art of bringing broken pieces together and making something stronger in the process. And we decided to build this entire company, which now is serving over 7,000 clients globally in 102 countries. The idea of what if we were to put and take a very unsexy idea of sales tax that people have to deal with monthly and combine it with the fact of we will actually provide more value to the customers by having them just connect their data, their system of records to us without charging them anything. And so that's how everything came together.
Yeah. And then you also provide a free Nexus study for your customer directly from for a lifetime perspective, right? You don't need to sign up or pay for Kintsugi. What is the approach on that? And because most companies, most big fours when I was there, or most companies, they would charge a hefty fee for that Nexus study. That would be a big project. So then why jump in and provide that for free? And then you build the entire services on top. Don't you see let's leaving revenue off the table? Don't we investors ask?
I mean, I think one way to think about it is leaving revenue on the table.
Yeah.
Versus for us, it was never about charging the end customer for providing them with information that would potentially just put them in a state of unease that, hey, you're not compliant. So the way we approached the market was look, we have two types of customers. Direct businesses who need to get compliant and experts who need to make their portfolio compliant. But by providing this information, this ever updating Nexus study that gets updated every 10 minutes for free, what we created was the biggest net. So anyone under the sun, whether they were pre-revenue company or whether they were doing $200 million in GMV, or if they were a software company that was doing $1 billion in revenue, could connect their ChargeBee, Stripe, NetSuite, SAP, and really quickly see, okay, how much sales tax do I owe and where do I owe it? And that had actually a second order effect that a lot of experts who have a portfolio of hundreds of companies started using our tool to actually see whether their entire portfolio was compliant or not. Because now they didn't have to go in front of their clients and convince them, hey, do a Nexus study for $5,000. The story changed and said, hey, we did the study for you. By the way, we found out that you have exposure and need to pay sales tax after getting registered in 19 more states. As your CPA, I can take care of it. And by the way, I can just roll this up in my billable hours. So we decided, and this was a conscious decision, that by giving this information for free, you were able to cast the biggest net and get a lot of people to connect their data. And then by providing this information for free, you were able to get both customers who may be using our competitors as well. But because Kintsugi is free, they all had also now installed Kintsugi, and as well as CAS firms and CPA firms to basically say, hey, now it truly costs you nothing. And by the way, for the auditors and the experts, that gives you another reason to pick up the phone and get in front of your client on a quarterly basis, because now you're not talking in theoretical terms. Hey, you should think about sales tax compliance. You're talking with their data. Hey, company XYZ, you're our beloved client. By the way, while you're growing so quickly, compliance is going to catch up. So that was the ethos.
Gotcha. Makes sense. No, perfect. And I've seen you guys have that partnership new with Vortex too. You guys are growing really fast, really well in the space as well. On the D2C brand. So congratulations on that. I want to now switch to Leroy from Filed. Leroy, you built one of the founding members of Juni, which was at that time before Lovable, the fastest growing startup ever in Europe. And then over there, you also had that epiphany that you wanted to start. You started working with US tax people for your own personal taxes, and you saw this opportunity that led you to go to Hyderabad directly, learn from there, and start building Filed. So what has that journey been like? What have you guys learned? And what does the future for Filed look like, and especially in tax prep?
Yeah, no, thanks for the introduction, and thanks everyone for listening. And yeah, it's been a journey as a Brit entering a new and, with all due respect, is a complicated tax system, trying to, play my own learning curve here, whilst also kind of the analogy of flying the plane whilst building the plane, I think is ever so real here in startups, but never more real in the world of tax. Things are always changing. More importantly, we have a very fast and accelerating tax ecosystem, accounting ecosystem, so many providers, so much information, and so much momentum. And it's incredible. It's really something I've never seen before. I would say what I've loved about this journey in a very short amount of time, which has now been just coming up on 2 years, is the reception that also accounting firms who we work with are more ready than ever. I think with all due respect, I can't speak on everyone here, but I can say in our own terms, if maybe we were doing this 2 years or 3 years earlier, maybe the accounting profession wouldn't have been quite ready neither. I think the rate of adoption has really kind of come to fruition because people have had a chance to, you could say, ease themselves into the kind of AI curve. They've had a chance to use ChatGPT, and some firms are even using Claude, and some firms are accelerating to using MCP within Claude, and it's great. The world is, it's like a joyful time to be a technologist, to be in this space. But it is also a case that we are trying to meet change management within firms with an ever-changing landscape and ensure that firms make one choice. Well, let me rephrase that point. Firms want to make a choice that is the right choice, and they're almost, you could say, sometimes paralyzed by the amount of information out there. So that's something that I think is really exciting as well, to also kind of help someone through that transformation, help someone through that change management, help a firm really unleash their expertise. And at File, that's what we do. We focus on building not only data entry, I think that's been a problem that's been solved for many of years by many incumbent solutions, but rather building skills and memory. Hello, there's a cat on screen here. Yeah. Building memory around the data entry. So when corrections are made, the tedium that we want to remove is when the systems that people work with let that data go into an abyss where corrections are made in tax softwares, where the tedium of correcting returns gets lost. And every year, the same work has to keep being redone and redone and redone. I think that's the biggest waste of human capital. For us, we can remove that tedium. We can build memory. We can institutionalize that knowledge. We can make sure that the firm can use that to grow. We can find a way that firms can not only gain leverage with AI, they can differentiate their business by competing where a team of 10 can feel like a team of 100. So there's a new world coming, and I'm super excited about what that looks like for the accounting profession here in the US.
So you guys are not just building out, people can go and file and just fill out the tax return for the first time. It will learn, and then if you roll it over, it will remember what are those contexts happening, because context is like the majority of the bottlenecks in this profession.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So think of it this way. Firms will use incumbent solutions today. Some firms use incumbent solutions and still continue to use them. And that's also fine. But filed is the verification and review layer in that case, where the incumbent does the data entry, the tax preparer or the tax professional will make the adjustments. But filed becomes a layer that collects that, remembers that, and self-corrects in the future. Not only for the coming tax seasons, but for the coming taxpayers, if there is a common theme between the corrections made before and the corrections made later. Of course, where file does the data entry, we do it really, really well. But again, nothing is perfect. And we never try to pretend to be perfect. We focus on trying to get to what we say is the firm's level of accuracy, but that only happens over time. So file isn't yet, you could say, built for everyone. Some people want a turnkey, out of the box, perfect system tomorrow. For us, that's not how AI works. I think everyone in this room knows how much time it takes to get things to be at the firm's or the user's preferences. And that's also kind of the learning curve. But again, back to my statement earlier on, I don't think the accounting profession was ready for that a few years ago. But I believe that they are. And we're getting into that really, really beautiful bell curve, or just at the beginning, where we see this early adopter, we see this kind of like now point of fruition coming in, and it's a really beautiful time to be in this space. So long may it continue.
Yeah, and so you guys are so then you basically onboard each client individually. You have to set time with them and make sure all their systems are getting done.
Yeah, for certain clients, we run a slightly more cohort-driven approach with our partners. Some of our partners being in this call here, a recent partnership between Abacor and Filed, where we run partnerships, we run cohorts of onboarding together, some of those being our practice management system partners. That's more of a cohort-led onboarding. But where it's what we call an enterprise firm, one of the big fours that we've onboarded recently, that actually means that we're going on-premise to an office actually next week. So in time of this recording, actually, we'll be there with what we call our tax engineers. Nearly 1/3 of this business are former CPAs and EAs themselves who have sat in chairs similar to the people that we sell to, similar to the people who are going through change management. And they will be the ones who run the deployments on premise, building all of the rules, all of the skills. And yeah, we're super excited about that being kind of one of the levers that we pull in these larger discussions.
Okay, perfect. And then good luck to you on taking your team over there. I know you guys are doing a great job. Everybody loves also your stories and presence, Leroy. So I think it would be great for the big four over there. And then now moving on to talking about your partnership with Abacor, I want to switch over to David. David, you spent your time as a practitioner in the profession, and then you worked in Gusto, and then you left everything to start basically a new category in the accounting space, where you said a specific AI meeting note taker that you start off with to get the context in and getting all that established. What led you to that journey to start building in from there? And then where you guys have seen since launching last year to now on how it's evolved, and where do you think the entire category is going to go?
Yeah, thanks, Adam. Congratulations on the podcast. I feel like you're shipping daily podcasts at the moment. So I love the velocity. And Leroy, that's a cool term. We're tax engineers.
I'm trying to trademark that.
We'll call them TEs.
No, it's a great terminology, I think.
Very cool. Yeah, Adam. It's been an amazing journey. So we started, maybe a bit of background before I jump in. We started end of 2024, but where we are now wasn't where we started. Where we started was actually, day one thesis was what if you were building a new general ledger accounting software in 2025? What would that look like? And why we started there was, when I started my career, in accounting 10 years ago, I was part of that desktop accounting to cloud accounting inflection point. So I still remember installing the CD to, install the accounting software, waiting for the activation code to come to, 2 weeks down the line to use the software. So naturally, I was very obsessed with what is that version in the AI, AI native world. However, as we, 4 or 5 months in, as we went down the rabbit hole, we just learned there was a far bigger problem and maybe a smarter wedge into this space than building a whole ERP accounting software with a small startup team. And, we naturally just heard from accountants David, using, a meeting assistant has been game changing for the firm. It's saved me a lot of time. It's, allowed me to focus on my clients. And at that time, there was no real like accountant specific tool. There was a lot of horizontal tools that accountants were testing out and onboarding. So it was the latest tool in their tech stack. And that was like one of the light bulb moments was when we sat down with a top 50 firm, who basically said that they were paying about $20,000-$30,000 for a contract engineer to basically pipe their notes from a meeting assistant directly to the practice management solution. And that was one of our light bulb moments of like, hey, we could do that. It's we can do the integration. It's a meeting assistant eventually becomes like someone's most used tool. So it's like high frequency, high opportunity to delight the customer and user, and you just become very, very sticky as well. So, that's how we landed in this spot. And really, when you think about it, when I think about it as well, the client meeting is such a monumental moment in any service, like any service lines within an accounting firm. And there's just so much you do before a meeting, during meeting, and post meeting. Like on average, there's probably like nearly up to an hour of admin time, like preparing for a client meeting, manually taking notes, and then drafting a recap email afterwards. So really automating time saving, cost savings, being present in meetings, and then everything afterwards. Like to your point, the why in doing this as well is there's just so much rich information we can capture in meetings. And actually at the time of this call, we'll be launching emails as well. So capturing like email context as well. And then with that, we can like automate everything downstream as well, which is super exciting relating to accounting and tax.
Then I feel like that's so much more important too. Like some of like when we're at conferences and I've been like playing around with like trying to actually get a device because I'm having so much conversations in real person and real life too. And I know you guys are working on the app to like coming out and launching those in person. But I feel like that's also where most of like the meetings are going to be taking place, and there's a lot of context over there that doesn't get recorded. So that having that and then pushing it into a system like File, where it will have all your memory and context plugging in, will be like really important. I do have, at this point, then I have a question for you guys is like, you guys are going the path of being the partnership side and integrating into the other applications into yours rather than some applications. If you see some of the tech tools that we already have are a closed loop system where they try to build everything over there. What was the reasoning behind both of your companies to try to go the partnership route rather than the closed loop route and try to build as much as possible? Say we're going to work with the widest variety of people.
Really simply, you're stronger together than you are divided. I know it sounds a little bit philosophical.
Yeah.
Might write that down in my memoirs. But candidly, we're all trying to provide value to some extraordinary folks who are at the cutting edge of being the vanguard to lead forward and taking what is a early bet on us. Candidly, we're up against worlds of people who are used to systems that have looked and felt and are the same for years. Okay. And nothing is met without scrutiny. The profession is taught to be the most, you could say, skeptical in some cases. The AICPA themselves became the governors of SOC 2. It's at the forefront of, my apologies, not SOC 2, just SOC in general, and the kind of like authorization around that, the ISO accreditations, etc. So what I really believe here is important is that we recognize that how can we, believe that we can provide the most amount of value in a closed loop ecosystem where firms want connections, they want the best of breed, they want the best of everything together. And as software companies before us have kind of gone down the path of bundling and then unbundling and then bundling and unbundling, it happens. There's this cyclical nature of 7, 6, 5 years. This kind of like incumbent comes and takes everything together and then takes it all apart. Those incumbents that shan't be named, here, those are the ones that go around, start buying all the early incredible technologies and, they kind of slow down, kind of don't develop. And well, we're not part of that. We're building great systems, and candidly, we're all trying to also be the best in what we do. And we are the best in what we do. That's what makes it so special. We get to work with incredible people like Abacor. We get to sit in incredible rooms with Kintsugi. And it's just so harmonious when things do talk to one another, that do connect, because what we want to do is present an ecosystem that firms shouldn't have to decide. They should just be able to know confidently that they're going to be in a world where the data can talk to one another. They're not going to be imprisoned in this world where things are closed. And that's been our philosophy from the very beginning. We're very happy to sit in a position now that we have over 15 different partners in a very short space of time, more to come and more to announce, but we only partner with those who are in their own right, leaders in their own category. We say we want to partner with people who are an inch wide, but a mile deep, not, a jack of all trades, which is a mile wide and an inch deep.
Yeah, I'll say echoing what Leroy just said as well, and plus one to all that. And I think it's simply just one word, like choices. I think giving accounting firms, accountants choices in, their tech stack and what they use is very important, and not being pigeonholed in, using one tool for everything. I truly do believe in not adopting like the best in class tools, and product depth is always better than product breadth. So yeah, to Leroy's analogy, like I think that's very spot on. And you also want to be best in class in like one or two things, like being very focused as a company, right? Like you can't. I'm not going to be solving sales tax, income tax, tax research. I'll leave it for you guys to solve those problems. So yeah, I'm real. For us is really focused on this layer here as a starting point. So I think and we hear that like with our customers and with accountants we speak to, a lot of accountants are disliking a lot of like the one-stop shop tools, and they don't want to be in this closed ecosystem anymore. They want to work within Claude, they want to work within ChatGPT, they want to use the best in class tools. So I think that's the direction where accounting firms are moving towards.
Yeah.
And can I just add to this? I also want to just say also best-in-class tools like Bizora when it comes to all things research, just to make sure that I didn't skip that. But I also want to just put the question back to you, Adam. I think one of our very first conversations, I remember, I don't know, maybe coming up in about a year ago, was like, hey, what's Bizora? Tell me all about it. And I think you were like, hey, we have this API. That was like the first thing I remember. It's like, this guy has an API. I love it. Like, that's great. Like, he's out there just he's like an agent of change. He's going API first. But Adam, why did you go API first? Why was that your whole thesis? I know you got the MCP stuff happening now, so it's an exciting time, but because you're Mr. Connector, you're connecting it all together.
Yeah. So I think it was like I couldn't sleep one night, and I was just like, what's up? And I'm like, I could see this future where I'm like, people will be tired and then something will come around. And this was, I think, before the launch of MCPs became this popular as it is. And I was just up and I'm like, maybe we can connect it. I was honestly trying to figure out how to get the best distribution possible in early Bizora stages without having to spend any marketing budget. And I'm like, this is maybe the way. So I had to convince my CTO to prioritize launching my APIs. And then as soon as it launched, we had the MCP connection. And Claude just took off over there, as this year early we saw Claude on the enterprise side happen. And the CPA firms I've been talking to, almost all of them who are tech forward are going to switch to Claude eventually. We just saw KPMG launch it for almost 150,000 of their employees. So eventually there will be an ecosystem. That's my thesis, where we will all work in an MCP first in these super apps, and all work will be get done in there. And then who has the most robust applications in there to make an accountant's life easier, that knows how personalized to each specific accountant, those incumbents will win. And that means like we can't charge our SaaS-based pricing anymore, where we can't charge seat-based pricing. It would be like on a token and usage and basically an output base. And based on that, we've also started doubling down on that. We're launching Bizora advisory services that will be launched in the next coming weeks, where we actually go ahead and tell you, we're taking if you take a position from Bizora, we'll sign off on it for an engagement fee. So having that's over there, but I wanted to ask you guys about this, having over there, if you are, let's say you go to a top 200 firm and they're trying to implement all of these strategies and AI strategies, how, if you're talking to their CTO, CIO, or their tax folks or accounting folks, how do you tell them how to evaluate tools? How do you tell them, how do you build that trust factor? And then how do you tell them what to do and implement? And is there still a lot of learning curves, or are you seeing the people are learning on their own and it has been growing really fast on that end?
Yeah, I can answer that first. So I think, yeah, it's definitely been interesting. Top 200 firms, we're doing a pilot with a top 100 firm right now in the US, and we probably serve nearly 10% of the top 100 firms in Australia as well now, which is super exciting. And I actually say a note taker is the starter kit. It's almost the starter kit of AI. It's almost the entry point like adopting AI. And maybe like we saw a lot of firms, like the first AI tools that they adopted was maybe Microsoft Copilot, two years ago, particularly these larger firms. And then, then many practitioners were using maybe a horizontal note taker, not specific for the industry. Like that was almost like the starter kit. And that's why we started there as well. Like, that told us there was a willingness to pay. There was a willingness to solve this problem. Like it was more that painful that they were willing to adopt a tool. And also sometimes tools not built for this profession as well, built for like other verticals in other industries. So yeah, I think going into this conversation, it's really like informing and telling teams like, it's the AI adoption journey. A lot of firms like are at the very beginning, like, they're early in the innings right now. Like just last week, we had one of our customers. It was crazy. It's a crazy story, but there was an AI CPA webinar with like 5,000 practitioners, and two of our customers were on the panel. And they mentioned how game changing Abacor has been in their firm. We probably had like 40 leads in 5 minutes.
Nice.
Come from this webinar from like 5,000 people that was listening. And then I actually went to my team. I'm like, what's happening? Are we getting scammed right now? Like, we got all these leads that came in, like, I think like 20 in a minute. And I was like, are these real leads? Like, we got all these demos signed up. It was like mind blowing. And then, yeah, so they turned out to be real. I thought it was some bot or like browser agent that was just like signing up for demos, but it turned out to be real. And we've gone through all these, most of the 40 calls. And what's crazy is like, we're still hearing firms, David, we don't actually use any AI tools. We haven't touched any AI tools. We've never used a note taker. We're still taking notes by hand. And really validate to me, there's just a ton of opportunity. And like firms are like maybe a lot of the firms we speak to and we know, like, they're really like just 1% of the global accounting firm market that have like, I don't know, vibe coding their own CRM, right? Or practice management. Whereas like everyone else is like still, adopting. And I think that's totally fine. Like everyone's, in their own AI journey. And I think it's all about starting small, seeing there's value, time saving, cost savings, helping make more money, helping create a more delightful client experience. I think like focusing on those type of value is how you should like adopt a tool. But yeah, hopefully that's helpful.
I would say similar to David is word of mouth is a great starting place. We've been very fortunate to find ourselves in a position now that we have the kind of like referral system that we need. It's not without having blood, sweat, and tears to get there. But what that means for us is now we can just say to a multi-office national firm, for instance, like, hey, here is another use case like you. Here's Paramount Tax. They, have 80 offices. You have 50. Go talk to them. Here is top 150 firm. Go talk to them. We can now pull upon these levers and start just saying, well, you want social proof, here's the proof. And I think that's something that we've been very fortunate with. And I know a lot of us have that leverage now. But as we all get there, it's not easy. It's the early people who really trusted us. On top of that as well, it is the kind of more independent, you could say, voices of the space, especially the kind of consultancies. Big shout out to everyone who is, out there recommending technology to these firms, who they sit on the precipice of being the listened gurus in the space, Ellen Choi, Woodard, Boomer, these folks are out here recommending, as Adam was mentioning, just recommending prior to this at the most recent podcast that you did my apologies, the webinar that you did, you're recommending people listen. And just even 2 weeks ago, talking about kind of a funny story similarly, Jason Stats releases his recommendation list, and I see a few new names there, and it's an incredible time to be recommended in these lists. Huge influx of people, and it's just like, okay, that's great. Now we need to show up and prove, but it does really, really help. So that is a kind of like roundabout way to answer your question of like how I help firms to start. I say, go talk to somebody else and then let's talk. And then, let's definitely get into a pilot. Filed is a little bit different. We don't run trials. Unfortunately, we don't have an open gate system, which we can just let people in. It would be beautiful if we could, but candidly, we have to manage expectations. Filed and all AI systems are not at 100% accuracy. So we want to create a story, understand if the firm is at the right place, if they're ready to go through the training, because it's not this, here is a problem and here is a solution. It is a problem. Here is the opportunity ahead of us. Here is the hard path and the hard truth that we have to put time in. It's an investment. You have to trust us. You have to work with us. It's going to take a few weeks. We're going to get there. We're going to deploy. We're going to train. We're going to take the feedback. We're going to rebuild and all of that hard stuff that we have to really, really drill down on to then talk about the solution. So it's this kind of like path, and we have to make sure that the firm is ready for that. So that's why we have this kind of pilot program, which is obviously proving huge success. But the firms that get it, get it. The firms that don't, they will get it soon.
And with your amazing tax engineers.
With the tax engineers who bring the whole story together. Again, 1/3 of the company.
So I know you recently launched this course where you can get a certification from Filed. Like
you can become a tax engineer. That's literally the whole premise of it. It's a great place to recruit people from, David.
Thanks for the tip.
Yeah. So how did that idea come about, and what does the course entail?
I want to say it's a huge shout out to Rachel, who leads the tax engineering team here. It was all her kind of idea. I can't take any glory for it, but Rachel is a force. I think we filmed this in Bangalore. She flew to Bangalore, worked with the team who film it, and huge shout out to Mars Masterclass, who were the ones behind it all. But the idea behind this is that we want to attach CPE to training. We want to make sure people could understand and evaluate independently. As with all CPE, it needs to be neutral. It's not about Filed. It's not a course on Filed. It's a course on just how to dip your toe into AI, where to start, where to find the resources that you need to gain trust, and where you need to be in the coming years. So it's nothing to do with Filed. It's completely independent. We just wanted to spend time in kind of becoming put some literature out there into the world, which we felt was lacking.
And is CPA eligible to get through it?
CPA eligible.
Wow, so working with NASA must have been fun.
There we go. And we also have some fun stuff happening with CP here at Filed, which is kind of like continuous within our product as well, which will become more used soon. But yeah, until we get that all opened, I'll share that in due course, maybe the next pod.
Nice. I would want to talk about like one final question with you guys is we see in like the legal tech space, there's like basically two companies going head to head right now, which is your Harvey and your Lagoras. Heading over there. Lagoras in Stockholm. So Leroy over there. But in the accounting space, there's not clear winner yet. Do you think, and I was talking to this about with other professionals, and they said that the accounting market is too fragmented for like being one specific direct winner that can have winner take all kind of system. Where do you guys see, what's your opinion on those, and how do you guys see like being, is that one of the reasons we all are pushing for these integrations, and we think like we should be best at what we're doing, and then we go farther as a whole team than like doing it individually?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it's amazing to see all the amazing companies coming out of Sweden.
Yeah.
I don't know, what are you drinking over there, Leroy? But it must be like amazing.
Well, the tap water is really good. I can tell you that much. I think all the money that they save by not having to buy bottled water, that's what's happening.
It's just an incubator fund right there with the water.
Yeah, it's crazy. We actually had like a few of our, Gusto colleagues and leaders that I previously worked with, like move into leadership roles at Lovable, and like, they've moved and packed up to Sweden as well from like San Francisco. It's just amazing to just see the talent you're attracting over in Sweden as well. So yeah, kudos to Sweden. But yeah, I think Adam, it is definitely very interesting. It's something I think deeply about. I think we all do. Like all areas of professional service, like legal, wealth management, financial advisors, and for us, like accountants. And I do think, like what you said, there's a big part to it. I think like within definitely like larger, top 500 accounting firms, there's almost at least like 5 service lines within an accounting firm, right? There's like the audit, tax, CAS, advisory, and I mean some larger ones have like a whole legal practice within the firm as well. So there is like that fragmentation of work, and then you can go very deep just on like one service line. I think we've seen like just like AI for audit, we've seen AI for for CAS and so forth, and AI for tax. And so I think there's an element of that where it's different to the legal industry. And then I think why legal has really boomed maybe or adopted like AI a little bit faster is, I mean, just language and text is just such a natural fit to the legal industry. I think the ROI is like, very, very clear there. And then I think like just when AI and LLMs launched, right, there was a lot of like chatter around like how it wasn't great with numbers. It hallucinated quite a bit. So, we've had to like really overcome that early friction and like, with large language models. But I think we're getting there. I think I think like accounting is probably just like a year or two behind like legal adoption. But I think the next few years is going to be really fascinating, and I'm very excited for where the industry is going.
Sorry, I had myself on mute there. Echoed completely. I would say there's a very interesting shift in the legal world that has happened and has been brought around by pressures put on legal professionals and legal firms by the availability and actual impact that AI is making on the consumer or the customer level. So, I'll give our example, right? Our legal counsel, phenomenal. I love them, but I would never go to them with just a raw expectation of, can you create me an MSA for this humongous partnership? I will draft the MSA with Claude and then say, can you redline this and sign off on it? I've done 80% of the work because it would be arduous and erroneous of me to go and delay my sales motion on a big partnership by saying I need 10 days to get something drafted because my legal counsel have tons of stuff on their plate. And the same pressures are being now kind of like seen in the accounting world. I think there's an interesting time coming where us as taxpayers will now start going to Claude and asking for advice. Enter Bizora MCP, which you can download it there, I'm sure, somewhere. But let me just explain this, because I really think that this is what changes the professionals. Candidly, this pressure bottom up is actually what's changing things, not just necessarily this kind of like competitive leverage that you need to gain. Like, we need to be the fastest for hiring the best staff. Yeah, that's obviously the case as well. You need to put more technology and hire the better people, but it does come from your customers. If your customers demand change, you're going to change. I even see it on the business level. I see it on like K1s. I'm seeing it on firms that we work with are saying, yeah, we want a faster K1 processing because, we're kind of getting this case that we're producing the K1 and we're then re-ingesting it. And the customer's kind of questioning, like, why are we paying for all of this? Like, isn't AI able to like make that better? Like, we're paying on the billable hour for K1s that you create and you're re-ingesting them. You could probably guess these kind of slightly larger firms who are responsible for that. But it's like, that is a very real problem. And what are you going to do about it? I don't know. You will know. But that means that they're going to have to start changing how they use AI and how they, most importantly, distill AI amongst their firms. And we're going to see a massive headwind now in the accounting world, where I believe there will be winners, and I anticipate a buoyant ecosystem and lots of winners, but I do believe there'll be a strong headwind coming up. Sorry, tailwind. My apologies. I said headwind. There'll be a really strong tailwind coming up. And what we've seen in legal is just what we're going to see in accounting. They're just about 3 years ahead of us, but now it's coming for us. So exciting times.
So by 2028, I guess, or even sooner with how things.
Yeah, I mean, it's now. It's now. Yeah. It is today. So yeah, I'm just so excited. And I think just one last thing here to say here on this legal space. It's great to be compared to adjacent industries that are very close, but also, with all due respect, it's a whole different ball game as well. And that's not to throw any focus away from how important the legal is and how citations and how having the right research and having the right case law is, of course, principle of everything. But in the accounting world, I really think a comma in the wrong place really makes a greater difference than a comma in the wrong place on a paragraph. Mm-hmm. So, I think that's just something that we're also very cautious about as well, in terms of what we can do with the models and how quickly we release them without, I'll say with full testing, but I see legal releasing models way quicker than we release them. Like, as soon as Fable 5 is out, it's like the next day, Fable 5 is available on our platform. Yeah. Like, I haven't even got my engineers testing it yet. Like, we have to slow down. Yeah. I had a firm like, hey, when are we going to get Fable 3 filed? I'm like, just to clarify, like, we need to do some stuff on our side first. We can't just throw that into your tax software.
Yeah. No, completely get it. And that's really interesting. I just saw this comment. I think they're going to start charging this legal space based on output, not on like a flat fee anymore. I saw Legora, or was it Harvey? One of them they said that one query cost them $20,000 to do a contract review because it was that.
But that's Harvey. Yeah, but it's like, I've been talking about doing a whole blog on this because I'm so fascinated by this. Again, it's like the contract sizes, though, are a little bit different as well. I think having really good relations with folks in the legal space, I've come to realize that their contract sizes are about 5x what ours is.
Yeah.
and subsequently they can command certain, pricing, but also that comes down to what the firm is willing to pay. With us, we could also throw, Fable 5, and, if someone listens to this in the future, can be like, these guys talking about Fable 5, we're at 7.5 right now. Like, what are they doing? But like at the time today, like Fable 5 is incredibly expensive, right? To compute and to put all of this through one system. But it's like, if the client's willing to pay for it, well, why not? So I think, in our world, many of the bigger firms are willing to pay for it. Many of the more mid-market firms, maybe not. So it is all kind of comparative. We obviously have to bench against what the incumbents charge and what the cost relative to human labor would be as well. So it's multiple factors outside of like just give them better models and give higher price points. Like we also have to also bench out like what is realistic. And in legal, you have a 10,000 page litigation and you need an answer within 45 days and you got to draft something like, yeah, maybe, you might lose a court case worth, tens of millions of dollars. You're willing to pay 20 grand.
No, fair enough. I feel like risk mitigation and incentives are like differently aligned in different industries, specifically like where accounting comes in, but believe that with the advisor role coming in, with all the tools that we're going to have, maybe that will like push up the pricing on what value we can provide our customers. Customer CPAs to their end users. So as we wrap up, though, as we begin conference season part 2, what conferences where your team will be at, where to find them, and how to best get in touch with like your specific organization?
Yeah, so we'll be on the sorry.
No, please go.
I'll be on the road. I will be on the road at Bridging the Gap coming up in a few weeks. So we're really looking forward to that. And then I think digital CPA and next to round off the rest of the year. We're on, find us on www.abacor.com, schedule a demo. And actually to Leroy's point earlier, like we've actually been mostly like to get started on Abacor, you've always had to talk to like one of us to get onboarded. But, by the time of this call, we're actually going to be activating self-serve, which is going to be super exciting. We haven't done that in the first 6 months of like Abacor yet. And we wanted to really just like to Leroy's point, build trust, making sure we're solving the right problems. And we're very excited for that. And maybe one final plug before we wrap up. I'm super excited for the future of the industry. And to your point, Adam, like, maybe accountants will live in Club one day. And I can't wait for the future where it's like, based on this meeting in Abacor, start doing the tax research in Bizora and then auto-populate it in Filed.
Yeah.
Like that will probably be the prompt in the future, right?
We'll all be partnered. Everyone will be partnered. We'll even be partnered with the incumbents, whether or not we like it or not.
It'll be one prompt where you have Abacor, Bizora, and Filed.
That is very true. And on the road shows, NATP, NAEA, all coming up in July, and some others, Synergy and DCPA. But yeah, looking forward to those, and our teams will be present. So come find them. And file.com, check it out. It's pretty easy. File.com.
And San Diego this year, right? For digital CPA.
Yeah, instead of Washington,
yes.
DC. Yes.
Much warmer.
But I found out digital CPA is, you know what? I might not be there though. It's like 2-3 weeks before which my wife is due to give birth. So that's definitely not going to happen.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Christmas time, Leroy.
But sorry, it's like, it's December 20th. So yeah.
So your firstborn will have a sibling now.
Exactly. So it's, I'm doing founder mode in difficult setting. It feels like, but hey.
Yeah, so you and like the other founders were just recently, a few of our other founding communities just had their own children, so we can all share tips over there.
There we go.
Okay, perfect. Thank you guys so much for having us here, and thank you guys for listening. This is Adam, signing off from Bizora, and as always, stay curious, guys. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah. Bruce.